What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we are going to be doing a different type of news and updates. I am honestly so excited for this. I can't wait to be making videos about this topic.
I'm working on something that will change the world and human life as we know it.
A fly got into the transmitter pod with me that first time when I was alone. And the insect is awake. If you stay a while, I'll show you a magic trick you'll never forget.
December 2019, my oldest brother got me something that changed my life forever. He got me the complete The Fly collection. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I had seen a few of the Fly movies. I didn't see all of them until this year, but I had seen a few of them back when I was 7 or 8. I had started out by watching David Cronenberg's The Fly on TiVo, and at the time I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great monster movie, and somehow my little 7 or 8 year old brain was so underdeveloped that that movie did not impact me the way that it was supposed to. I did not find it to be as disturbing, disgusting, or as emotional draining as it is. I just thought it was a cool monster movie. Then I watched The Fly 2, the sequel to David Cronenberg's The Fly, and I really liked it. It was a monster movie. It sufficed in everything that I wanted it to. I also watched the 1958 classic The Fly, and I really enjoyed that one as well. And then many years went by until 2020 rolled around. I sat down and watched all of the Fly films, and I will never be the same. So today I am making this video to celebrate the 34th anniversary of David Cronenberg's The Fly, the masterpiece starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. If you've not seen The Fly, I have the Amazon link down below. Go buy the movie. I'm telling you, you want to see it. I think it's incredible, and so the fact that I'm finally making Fly videos is gonna be awesome. Get used to it, but not too used to it because there's not a ton to talk about. But get used to the fact that I'm gonna be covering The Fly on the channel, or at least talking about the Fly movies on the channel from now on. In fact, I'm so in love and obsessed with the Fly franchise that I'm working on a fan film sequel to the original The Fly trilogy. Look out for updates for that as well. In a last minute edition here, I will be showing off some art brought to us by Altier Andrew, who recently asked if there's any art I would like to see, and rather than asking for something Godzilla like normal, I asked him for Brundle Fly. And of course he delivered, and it's awesome. I love this. He's got that nasty little human hand. That's disgusting. Also, look at that chest. There's some great detailing there with the chest where you can see that kind of like, you can see inside of his chest, his organs. That's gross. This is awesome. It's kind of like a weird little redesign almost. He's got like these big eyebrows and this nasty little insect feet coming out of his side. I don't know. This is great. If you guys want any fan art featured in upcoming episodes of this, because I will definitely do more as news starts to come out. That'll probably be like a year from now when we start to get anything, if that. So it'll probably be a while, but if you want to get your art featured eventually, send in some Fly fan art and I will save it. So with today, August 15th being the 34th anniversary of the release of The Fly, I wanted to dive into a number of news-related articles and pieces that we have about the potential for a new The Fly reboot to come out. So considering I have never made a video on this topic before, there is some groundwork to cover, and we will cover that groundwork here. I'm gonna assume you have at least a familiarity with what the concept of The Fly is going forward. I'm not going to explain the movies to you. You get it. Go watch them for yourself. It's honestly, for me, the best horror franchise I've ever seen. I think it's the most solid and consistent all the way throughout. Go check the movies out for yourself, especially the original and the 1986 film. That being said, let's jump into discussions for a The Fly reboot or remake to be made in the 2020s. And I will start this video by saying that I do believe by the time 2030 rolls around, there will be at least one more The Fly movie out there. So I'm sure there will be stuff to talk about throughout this decade. Beginning with the conversation, I wanted to mention that Disney is still interested in doing a The Fly movie under their Fox banner. Now, for those of you who don't know, I don't know how you don't know this, but Disney bought Fox. They bought the studio who owned The Fly and many other properties. And interestingly enough, Disney was still interested in revisiting that franchise under the Fox label. Of course, it is the exact wrong thing for Disney's brand brand, are you kidding me? But they're still interested in pursuing The Fly, which I'm okay with. I would love to see more. At one point, J.D. Dillard was in negotiations for The Fly. This was back in 2017, and I suspect that this has been done with. I don't think he's going to still be involved in the project. I think he's going to have nothing to do with it. J.D. Dillard, for those of you who don't know, I don't know who he is either. He is a small-time director. He's done a few movies. He's not really made it big yet. From what I've seen, his work seems promising. His most prominent work is the movie Slight, which he wrote and directed. It's about a magician using magic to stop a crime, basically. He's like a street criminal, like a small-time criminal who gets in over his head. I remember seeing trailers for the movie back in whatever year it came out, I believe 2016, around that time period, and I was quite interested in the movie. I never did go see it, so I don't know if it's any good. Reviews of it online are quite mixed. People seem to really like it, or they seem to not like it at all, so I don't know. It certainly could have been received better is all I'm saying. Either way, when J.D. Dillard was in talks to do this movie, I thought his goals were quite admirable. He talked about how he wanted to make movies that bridge the gap between emotional dramas and high-energy blockbusters. And that's something that I think we've been missing in modern days. I can't think of many movies that truly nail the mark of having a very emotional story while also delivering on some awesome action sequences. The best example of this that I can think of comes from the year 1954, and for those of you friends of the channel, you already know what I'm gonna say, the original Godzilla. That's the best example of a movie that has an incredibly strong emotional core and a solid set of characters, while at the same time delivering some awesome action sequences. I don't think a single movie has ever nailed that mark as well as that movie did, but I'm quite biased in that. J.D. Dillard was also interested in telling a very character-driven Fly movie, which emphasized emotion over spectacle. That is absolutely the way you need to go with The Fly. Ever since the original publication of The Fly short story by George Langland back in 1957, The Fly has always been a character-first story. In the short story, you barely spend any time with The Fly. Andre Delambre turns himself into The Fly, you barely spend any time with him as The Fly. Once he's revealed, he exits the story almost immediately afterward. As for the live-action interpretation of that movie, the 1958 adaptation of it, you don't spend much time with The Fly there either. Andre spends most of the movie after he's been mutated, cloaked, and hidden, and when he's finally revealed, again, he exits the story very shortly after. David Cronenberg's movie took a completely different approach with the metamorphosis rather than a sort of body swapping situation that we got in the original story. And in this version, it was 100% a character-driven story. Much like in the original, you spend all of your time with the characters rather than the monster. Even when Seth Brundle is mutating into a monster himself, you're still spending time with Seth Brundle, the character, and the character always comes first, all the way until the very last moment of the movie. Here's a quote from J.D. Dillard. "No matter what, we want to start with the character. I think if you look at a lot of remakes and the ones that may not have been as successful as the others, I think oftentimes the wrong pieces are remade. Having this conversation about bigger projects and IPs, we really want to make sure we're following a beating heart first and foremost. This is the approach you got to take with it. I strongly believe if you're going to reboot The Fly, this is the attitude you need to go into it with. Although I don't know what I could say about J.D. Dillard as a writer-director, I've never seen any of his other works, I've never seen anything from him, so I can't really speak to him if I think he's the right choice for this movie or not, but I can say at the very least it sounded like he had the right attitude. However, like I said, this was back in 2017, and more than likely the case is he's no longer on the project. Probably been replaced, the story that he wrote was probably thrown out, they've got an entirely new set of people. That's just the way show business works. Back in 2019, What Culture accidentally mispredicted that The Fly would return? They had this up-and-coming movie remakes things, and they said that according to their sources, The Fly would be remade. Sitting in 2020, it's easy to look at them and laugh, but even back in 2019, people like Dread Central were pointing to their video saying, it's not gonna happen. There's gonna be no Fly movie in 2019, and there wasn't. We didn't see anything about The Fly, we didn't even hear anything about The Fly up until 2020. Before we jump right into the 2020 news, let's reverse a little bit to the time when Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom came out. Jeff Goldblum, who sort of was kind of in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, not really, but he was kind of in it, did some interviews around that time, and in some of them, specifically one with Bloody Disgusting, he talked about The Fly and the possibility of returning for a sequel. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the 1986 Fly, you're gonna have to get out of this video. I mean, there's no avoiding spoilers. The quote that I'm about to read to you from Jeff Goldblum himself spoils the ending of that movie, so if you're really interested to see that movie without knowing how it ends, I'd dip on out of this video, but if you're interested, you can listen. Or if you've seen the movie, you can stick around. Jeff Goldblum says, "I don't think my character would be involved because, of course, I got tragically mutated with The Fly, and and then the machine. Oh boy. But maybe I show up as the grandchild of the original Seth Brundle, or Seth Brundle had a brother, and that brother emerges in some ways. Who knows? I don't know, but David Cronenberg was a thrill to work with. Boy, if he was involved, I'd like to work with him again, I'll tell you that. So there you go, spoiler alert, Jeff Goldblum's character doesn't make it through the original The Fly. But that being said, I do think the possibility could be there to do something along the lines of what he said. Although I don't really like the idea of Seth Brundle just having a brother, I think that would be a little cheesy, honestly, because he would just kind of come out of nowhere and be like, hey, I'm here. I would feel that it would be forced and awkward if he were to play a Seth Brundle type character while playing Seth Brundle's brother. However, I do kind of like the idea of having a grandson to The Fly. Now, of course, there was a sequel to The Fly in 1989, I believe, and that was The Fly 2. Thoughts and opinions on that movie aside, I actually like it. I don't think they're interested in following up on the story of that film. It would be really cool for me, and I think for a lot of other hardcore Fly fans, if they did a sequel and Jeff Goldblum wound up playing the son of the character from The Fly 2, so he winds up playing his own grandson, and then you have Eric Stoltz as like this middle ground character. I think that could be kind of cool. You'd maybe have to do some makeup to make him look a little different, or maybe you just address the fact that he just looks just like him. I think that could work as well, but I do think there are some possibilities of a story to tell following The Fly 2. I definitely think you could tell a story with the grandson of Seth Brundle, or the son of Martin Brundle, the character from that movie. In fact, the sequel that I have kind of planned for that movie in my head, which is not the fan film sequel I'm making, by the way, it would involve the grandson of Seth Brundle, because of course when I watch movies I kind of plan out the sequels for myself as well, and seeing as there is none after The Fly 2, I kind of made up my own story. And if I were to make my own story, yeah, I would definitely tell the story from the perspective of Seth Brundle's grandson. That's what I would do. So I think it would be kind of interesting to have Goldblum come back to reprise a sort of similar role, being the grandson of himself, because of course you do have characters where you see their sons are like the fathers, and you know, the grandsons are like their fathers or like their grandfathers, that kind of deal. So it could be kind of cool. But yeah, getting him back in the mix would definitely be a challenge. As for the part where he mentions wanting to work with David Cronenberg, a lot of articles written about this talked about it saying that Jeff Goldblum claims he would only return if David Cronenberg were involved. That's not actually the case. He never stated outright, I won't come back unless Cronenberg's involved. He just says he would like if Cronenberg were involved. It's like if they were to make a sequel to Kong Skull Island, and I were to say, I'm really excited for this sequel. I would like for Jordan Vogt Roberts to be the director of that movie. But even if he's not, I'm still gonna go see the movie, you know? It's kind of the same idea here, where he says, I don't know, but David Cronenberg was a thrill to work with. Boy, if he was involved, I'd like to work with him again, I'll tell you that. He's not saying if he's not involved, I won't work on it. So I don't know, there's the potential. Also, Goldblum went on to talk about The Fly opera. For those of you who don't know, the 1986 film was adapted into an opera by both David Cronenberg and composer Howard Shore. It received mixed reviews. There are some later interpretation variations of it you can find snippets of on YouTube. I've watched parts of them. Hearing Howard Shore's music return is pretty cool, but everything else is kind of a mess from the versions that survive on YouTube. I think the original play that David Cronenberg himself directed was a lot better done. Seemed to have fairly good special effects for a play. I don't know. I don't think the versions that survive on YouTube are an accurate depiction of what the original play or opera was like. But yeah, Jeff Goldblum mentions how he never actually got to see that opera, but he really wishes he got to see it. Okay, so going from there, let's catch up with modern day, where recently, like a month ago, thank you to, I forget who, but someone on Twitter shared this with me, because if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, you know I've been gushing over The Fly for a full summer now. Thank you to the one who it is. I totally forget who it is, I'm sorry, but one of you guys shared with me an article about how there was a plan to reboot The Fly. And so that's what we're going to talk about here, is that there is a plan to reboot The Fly. They're still planning on rebooting it. The date is unknown. We have no idea when they're actually going to kick this whole production off. Given the corona situation, I wouldn't hold your breath until 2021, and that's when we'll probably start to see stuff. As for the film itself, what it would entail is they're looking to make a female-led Fly reboot with Jeff Goldblum involved. That's all we know. It's supposed to be a planned reboot, which might be, according to one article written by We Got This Covered, which is a familiar name for me. I feel like I have talked about one of their news articles before, and I feel like I've mentioned that I don't entirely know if they're reliable before, but they claim to be very reliable. They go out of their way to let you know they're reliable. So we'll take their word for it here. They claim that this would be a direct sequel to the 1986 David Cronenberg masterpiece, ignoring the sequel, The Fly 2, just completely ignore that one. Kind of in the vein of what Halloween did when Halloween came out in 2018 as a direct sequel to Halloween. I'm trying to think, I know there are other examples of movies that have done that recently, but yeah, that's the biggest example in the horror community is Halloween. So it sounds like they kind of have a similar idea here with The Fly, where it'd be a direct sequel, but I guess kind of opened the door to do something with Jeff Goldblum playing the son of his character, Seth Brundle. It's unclear if this will follow up on any of the original plans. David Cronenberg did have plans for an unmade sequel. The reason it never got made was because of budgetary issues, I believe. I think it was just this big budgetary issue, and so they never actually made the movie, and they passed the sequel off to someone else. It's unclear if David Cronenberg will have any involvement in the movie. Doesn't sound like he will. Sounds like they're going to go ahead without him, but it does sound like they want Jeff Goldblum back. And although I couldn't quite find the article again, the original article that I read on this topic had mentioned that he might have some sort of creative role in the movie. Aside from an actor, it sounded like he might be producing, helping craft the story, doing something with it. I don't entirely remember, and I can't really find the article again. So as far as we know, they're looking to get Jeff Goldblum back. The word that the articles use is that they're courting him. They're trying to get him back. It'd be interesting to see what they do. I really would like him back. Again, I don't quite know how you do it. I'm sure there's a way to do it that would make it awesome. I would absolutely love to have him back. He is truly the thing that makes that original movie so special. Without Jeff Goldblum playing The Fly, the movie would not have worked. Jeff Goldblum makes Seth Brundle. He makes that whole movie. It's an Oscar-worthy performance, and it's probably Jeff Goldblum's best performance he's ever done. So I would absolutely love to have him back. As for the female-led aspect of this, I've seen a lot of people kind of panicked about this, where they're saying things like, oh man, another woke Hollywood production. That's not really something to worry about. Most of the Fly movies are female-led, or at least like an equal amount are female-led. The original The Fly is a female-led movie. Although Vincent Price and Al Dave Hedison were billed as the stars of that movie, Patricia Owens is the star of that movie. They aren't. Patricia Owens is definitively the star of the original The Fly. She does the majority of the heavy lifting in that movie. She's the one who we spend the most time with. It's Patricia Owens' movie. Return of the Fly doesn't really have much of anything to do with women. There's a female character who's sidelined in it. Curse of the Fly is a movie that spends a lot of time with our female lead, who's also named Patricia in the movie. We spend a lot of time with Patricia. I forget the actor who plays her. I believe it's Carol Gray, but I could be wrong on that. And yeah, we spend a lot of time with her. It's not quite a female-led movie, but it's kind of 50-50 split. It's told from her perspective, but she spends the third act of that movie knocked out, so it's not entirely her movie, but we do spend a lot of time with her. Jeff Goldblum's The Fly is a female-led movie. I mean, basically, for the most part, right? I'd be willing to bet that you could break down the screen time, and Gina Davis has almost as much screen time as Jeff Goldblum. And it really does feel in a way like her movie. You're watching it from her perspective, an outsider seeing this horribly tragic thing happen to this man. You're trying to help him, but you're powerless. You got nothing. You can't do anything for him. That's the exact position Gina Davis is in. You're sympathizing with her. You're empathizing with her. The movie is told from her perspective, despite misleading the audience into thinking it's Seth Brundle's movie. You really do think it's his movie because he's by far the most interesting part of that movie, and he's by far the best character in that movie, and he's also the one with the most interesting things happening to and around him. But Gina Davis's character is the one you relate to. She's the anchor for that movie. It's her movie. The Fly 2 isn't quite a female-led movie. I mean, there's a female in it. She has a decent amount to do, but it's not a female-led movie in any way. That's Eric Stoltz's movie. Point is, the Fly movies that are pretty widely accepted as the good Fly movies, those are the female-led ones. So although they are looking to do a female-led Fly reboot, I don't think that's anything to worry about. I'm open to the idea of a female being the one to turn into the Fly this time around. I mean, if you're gonna bring Jeff Goldblum back, I think it would be kind of awesome to have him do it again, but I also could see how that could be a little silly if he winds up being in the exact same scenario as his previous character. So maybe you would want him to do a little bit of a role reversal where now he has to be the one reacting. That could be kind of cool as well. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. I also don't think it's a problem that they're trying to make this a female-led Fly reboot, because again, all of the Fly movies that are really good are female-led Fly movies. And although I like both the other two Fly movies, they're not as good as the others. The only thing that I worry about is that they're gonna really try and make sure you know it's a female-led Fly movie. I don't know when the movie will be made, but because it's post-2020, it will definitely be like, this is a female-led movie, so take that. Who the hell cares? Just make a good movie. We'll watch it. We'll enjoy it if it's good. And if it has a female lead, then awesome. We liked The Fly, right? It's almost universally loved. And again, it's a female-led movie. So I don't think you need to force those politics. You just need to tell a natural story the way you've done for the entire franchise career, and you'll be golden. And I don't also like to point out that the Fly short story is also Helen Delambre's story. You could make the argument that it's kind of Francois' story, who is the Vincent Price character. The anchor of that story, again, is Helena Delambre, or Helene Delambre, as Vincent Price pronounces it. Either way, the point I'm trying to make is that headline shouldn't scare people. We should just wait to see how they're going to do it, and I hope that they're going to do it wisely, the way they've done all the other movies. I would like to think that at least somewhere in this world, people still have their senses and their wits about them, and they're not going to really try and force some political agenda, especially into a franchise that really doesn't need it because it's been doing everything right from day one. We'll see. The only other thing I will say before ending this video is that if they do a Fly reboot, it will be an absolute disgrace to the legacy of the Fly to do a CGI Fly reboot. If they go the route of the remake slash sequel, prequel to The Thing, the 1980s The Thing, if they go that route where instead of having the awesome practical creatures that made the original film so special, they just take CG up, they're gonna ruin it. Yes, you could tell an awesome story, you could do some great things with CG, but you don't need to. This is a practical story. It feels the most personal when it's practical. The thing that makes the 1986 movie stand out so much amongst horror fans is the practical elements from it. You don't need to push the bar at all while trying to do CG special effects. If you want to push the bar, give us some badass, really groundbreaking, amazing looking practical effects in the 2020s, because no one else is doing it. No one else is doing the practical work that they used to. So you can be the one movie to really push that bar, the physical bar, forward, since it hasn't really moved from the 90s. It's been kind of where it's been at with the 90s animatronics ever since the 90s. We haven't gotten a ton of really awesome practical stuff since then. You could be the one to do it. You don't need CG to tell a story with the Fly. You don't. There's no need for it at all. So that's the last thing I'll mention here. Thank you guys all for watching this video. I will definitely talk more about the Fly franchise, and whenever news starts to come out for the Fly movie, if they actually go through with remaking it, again, I think they will, I'll definitely cover all the news for that, because this is a franchise that I am very in love with, and I will be very in love with for a long time. So until next time, thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time. D-Man out. I definitely said until next time twice, but whatever. Peace.